All right, welcome to the BFR Podcast presented by Sports Mockery. We are here a little bit after, a day after, to recap just the Bears versus Colts. It's going to be a fun one. We are going to have a very special guest today, James Boyd. He's going to kind of help us recap the game, but more importantly, he's going to kind of give us a in-depth analysis of Justin Fields from a different perspective, just from the Colts sidelines, kind of what he saw unfiltered, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're excited, but Ficky, man, how was your Saturday before we get in the game?
It was good, not as exciting as a game, you know what I mean? Because, like almost everybody was out, but, still some great stuff that we could talk about. And I'm glad we have James Boyd from The Athletic who covers the Colts. So I think it should be fun to hear his perspective because obviously we only get our side. We have our Bears tinted glasses on, I like to say. So we, it'd be nice to see is the goods as good as what we have been hearing, and are the bads as bad as what we've been hearing, So it'll be good to get his perspective.
Absolutely. And we'll have him here. He's coming in here in probably just a few minutes to kind of get that perspective. Before we kind of hop in and bring him in, what are some of your takeaways, just some quick points just from yesterday? Who's like your riser and who's a faller from last night's game?
Well, it's not necessarily a person, but I'll say a position, punt return. We saw the muff punts with Velus, right? Or as the Colts, I don't know if you saw this during the telecast, but they put Dallas Jones. So as Dallas or Velus been muffing punts, we don't have someone back there. And then Dante Pettis, now he did do punt returns last year. He didn't muff any punts, but boy, when he catches the ball, like you're getting like a yard or so. So it's still interesting to see who's going to be back there because we saw Tyler Scott, the reports were for him, our boy, he had some muffs and he's a rookie. So it's like, if it's not Velus and, Tyler was below Velus, are we just stuck with Dante? And does that mean Dante makes the team? Obviously, he's the punt returner. So that'd be interesting. Does that knock ESB, Equanimous, EQ out of the 53-man roster? So that's my first real big point. And then my second one is, again, not really a person, but a unit. And there really wasn't much pass rush, right? We saw some good things with Terrell Smith. So I think he's going to make the team. He had a beautiful strip sack again. I think he's had like 3 sacks in the past 2 games. So I think he's definitely making the squad. But like we didn't see that breakout like with Gibson. It just didn't seem like there was really much, especially in the first half. The second half could be a different story. But what about you?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into this more in depth after the interview with James. But for me, quick off the bat, it was Roschon Johnson. I thought he had a very impressive day. Just obviously he got a lot of carries, but just the way he kind of explodes. He's faster than you think. He reminds me of David Montgomery a lot, but maybe just a little bit faster. And I hate to compare him because Montgomery's done a lot in this league. He's produced at a very high level. And so we have to see it from Roschon at this stage and again at this level. And then our backup quarterback, obviously that's a hot topic right now. First of all, I want to make sure I'm saying his name right. Tyson what is it?
No, Bagent, I think. I was saying it wrong last week, but I think it's Bagent.
Okay, yeah. I'm hearing a couple different ways. So anyways, I'm going to call him Tyson. I really like what I'm seeing. I cannot wait to kind of go into the All-22, and we're going to have a fun stream later this week to kind of go and recap it all with you guys. So we're excited about that. But those are my 2 risers. I really think there's a competition at the quarterback spot for that number 2 in the depth chart. And I just can't wait to see kind of what comes away with that. What do you think about Justin Fields? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, to go off your comment about Tyson, I mean, yeah, he on paper, like what we've seen so far, right? It makes sense he'd be QB2, right? He's outplayed PJ Walker, right? Like he just has, and I think everyone agrees. The thing is, though, as a backup quarterback, is a lot of times they want someone who's experienced just with NFL games. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen because remember, I think PJ Walker has a $4 million deal, $2 million guaranteed, which isn't a lot, right? But they did invest money into him. He's technically a free agent signing. So it'll be interesting to see because I don't think we would bring 3 onto the roster. And if Tyson hits the practice squad, and if you don't know how the practice squad works, is basically, I think there's like 13 slots you can put people in. And then basically other teams can basically pick from the litter, right? So like we can pick someone from someone's practice squad, they can pick from ours. So I feel if he hits that, there's no likelihood that he's going to stay there. So it's like, how do you secure that we, secure someone that we drafted, or I think he's a UDFA, right? But we brought in that now can be like that development quarterback, which we haven't seen in years. Pace never did that. He barely drafted a quarterback. So I think he should be QB2 based off what I've seen. But again, I'm not a coach and I don't have as much information, but I could definitely see why they would, if he's not QB2, I could see why they'd put him 3 because of the experience he has. You're on mute. Dave. Sorry. You're on mute.
Thank you. I'm going to keep doing that for a while. Anyways, we have James here. So we're going to go ahead and table this conversation. We'll talk more about just our risers and fallers, some other kind of tidbits from the game. So we're excited about that. But Ficky, you want to go ahead and get the overlay for James and I'll bring him in?
Absolutely.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right. So we have James Boyd of The Athletic, Colts reporter. James, first of all, how are you doing? Thank you so much for hopping in with us.
I'm doing good. Obviously, it's a little weird still watching the Bears, growing up as a Bears fan. So it's fun to kind of
back
again. So, yeah.
Did you say you grew up a Bears fan?
Yeah. So I'm from Romanville, Illinois. Grew up as a Bears fan. It's a little bit easier now to be neutral, unbiased, because I've been in journalism for about 5 years at this point. But it's still funny because whenever the Bears come to town or the Colts have anything to do with the Bears, my family's blowing up my phone, and I'm like, I don't cover the Bears. I cover the Colts. So when you're asking me about, like third and fourth, depth chart guys, I'm like, I'm not sure. I haven't watched that guy. But obviously I kept a close eye on Justin Fields.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of Justin Fields, you were there, joint practices. You got to see everything. I'm a big fan of Anthony Richardson. I'm happy for the Colts. I think he's going to be great. But I want to kind of get your insight on both Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields. What did you see? What did you like from Fields? And then what did you not like?
Yeah, I think with Fields, I liked when he was just decisive. When he was decisive, he was, pretty unstoppable. Had some red zone scenarios and red zone sessions where he was just on fire, him and DJ Moore especially, and that looked promising. But I thought that when they got to 11-on-11 and where he ran into troubles when he held onto the ball too long, which is obviously something that Chicago Bears fans and analysts and writers have talked about, why are you holding it so long? So there was one play in particular, I was watching it, he rolls right, doesn't have anything, and I'm like, all right, just throw it out or throw it in the dirt or, check down. Slings it back across his body, across the middle of the field, gets tipped by Nick Cross, Colts safety, and intercepted. And I'm like, that's not something you can do, But again, when it wasn't that, when he just made, I believe, or took what the defense gave him, rather, a lot of it turned out really well for the Bears and in favor of them. So I think that's what he has to focus on. He's gotten better at it, I think. And again, I'm not watching him every single game, every single practice, but from what I saw last year to just throughout training camp this year, I do think he's making strides in the right direction.
Yeah, James, and we doubled down on that because, last year he kind of had the home run to check down mentality, which, is great for highlight reels. But when it's like, we just need 3 yards here, you know what I mean? Just drop it off. So I think coming into this offseason, our biggest thing was like, we want to see some of that short to mid intermediary throws. You know what I mean? Some of the easy stuff. We know you can hit the home run, but when you just need a single to send the guy from third home, let's just get that single. So I remember there was a practice. I don't think you were at this one because it wasn't the joint one this week, but where he was just checking down. And Twitter kind of blew up because Bears fans were like, well, where's these deep passes? Where are these deep passes? And I'm like, we know we can hit those. I'm more excited that he's dropping it off to Khalil Herbert for 3 yards. You know what I mean? So it's good to hear from your perspective because we kind of heard those reports, but it's good to hear that we're seeing more of those decisive decisions on some of those shorter plays and giving what you said, giving what the defense gives you.
Yeah, and also I didn't realize how big he is. I was kind of waiting to see how big he is in person because everyone freaks out here because Anthony Richardson is 6'4", 250, built like an alien. I played basketball with him at the YMCA a couple weeks ago. He just randomly showed up, and that was like playing against, Thanos or something like that. Because he first play or an alley-oop, he just reverse dunks it. And I'm like, wow, this guy's super athletic. But Justin, they're standing side by side. He's not too far off from him. He's a very good athlete. Obviously, you all know that. But again, I think that when he uses just the up top, the up here, the brain, he's at his peak. I mean, he knows he's a great athlete. We've seen that. He's shifty, all those things. But if he can get to the point where he's making you pay by not even having to use his legs and not even having to hold on to the ball, Obviously, that helps longevity for his career, helps him stay healthy, and helps the team. And then, like I said, with DJ Moore, I think that he was the perfect complement to add to that offense, to what Justin Fields needs. And I believe I was asked this the other day, how many yards will Justin Fields have this season? I think the prop line will be like 2,800 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll smash that because he'll get 1,000 from DJ Moore. I mean, he looked like a true wide receiver one, man. And no disrespect to Mooney and others, but I just feel like even Mooney looked better in a different role where he's not relied on to be a wide receiver one, because to me he isn't. That is a knock on him. But in that wide receiver 2-3 role, he looks much better. And I thought the offense, again, looked good when they weren't just hemming and hawing and holding the ball and second-guessing themselves. So just get rid of it quick, make the easy throws. And then sometimes you just don't have a throw. So just throw it away and live to fight another down.
Right.
Yeah. Last night's game. Sorry, real quick. I just want to bounce off this. Last night's game, since there weren't a lot of starters playing, it reminded me so much of what Fields had last year, because basically those weapons that were in there was what Fields had, and that's why he ran for 1,100 yards. So I'm with you, James. It's like, I don't need you running for 1,000. Hopefully, a good chunk of that gets taken up by DJ Moore and passes down the field. So exactly. I hope you're right on that. I'll definitely take the over on the 28.
Me too. I'm excited you mentioned DJ Moore. I think a lot of us are really excited about that, just that combination, that duo. I want to kind of touch on Anthony Richardson real quick. What have you seen in camp that has impressed you? Like, is he as advertised? Are you excited? Do you think he's going to be able to kind of make that a big leap in year one, or do you think it's going to be kind of like a slow transition for him?
Man, I don't know. That's the tough part, right? And I believe the Colts' assistant general manager, Ed Dodds, he said it best after the draft. He's like, he's a blue chip player without the resume. Like, he has all the stuff you can't teach. When you look at his tape, you see the highlights, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's incredible. And then he didn't have like an All-American season. He wasn't, a Heisman candidate or anything like that, like Justin Fields was. He didn't come from a very big, like, powerhouse program. Now, Florida's good, obviously, but they haven't been like, Tim Tebow good in a number of years. So I think with him, a lot of it just comes down to, can he learn to do the check downs, the intermediate throws and stuff like that, because he has all of the wow factor that you can, bottle up and put into one person. I mean, everything he does looks easy. I mean, he just runs easy, throws easy. Even in the preseason opener last week, because he didn't play last night, but in the preseason opener, he first run of his NFL career, drops back, defensive end grabs his ankle, he just rips out of that. The guy's 260, he just rips out of the guy's, ankle tackle and then goes and lowers shoulder, runs up a cornerback. And so I'm like, man, this guy's an alien. But to me, the consistency is key to the timing. Sometimes his timing is off. He doesn't make bad reads. I think people have kind of overstated that or kind of over-exaggerated it. It's not like he's out there just throwing it anywhere. It's usually because it's a little bit late, probably because he just hasn't seen an offense like that or isn't used to an NFL offense. And also, it's learning and remembering that you can't do Superman stuff that you did in college in the pros. Like, he had a pick early in the preseason game, a preseason opener, where he dropped back. I believe there was a miscommunication on the route, but instead of just throwing it away, he kind of just tried to force it. And I'm like, that doesn't work. It works in the SEC maybe, but not here in the NFL. So he seems to be shouldering all the pressure, all the spotlight pretty well. I think the team itself feels more pressure than him, but he's been, pretty cool just throughout everything and a very humble dude. So it's exciting to see him. But I tell you, he does something every single practice where you're like, that's why they picked him number 4.
Right. Yeah, I saw Jim Irsay on the telecast last night said they would have picked him if they had number 1. Now I don't know
about that. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that I was gonna ask you if you felt that way, because I was like, all right, Irsay. I mean, you be saying some wild shit sometimes, but I'm like, I don't know about that one.
It's easy to say that now, right? Because you didn't move up. Because in my opinion, it's like, all right, what are you missing about Bryce Young that others didn't? Because what are you getting from Bryce Young that others didn't? Because, again, Bryce Young was looked at as the number 1 quarterback pretty easily. I mean, there was a heavy discussion among Bears fans and Bears writers and reporters that I talked to, like, are the Bears going to consider taking him and moving on from Justin Fields? So, obviously, knock on him is his size. But, no, I don't know if that's something that I truly believe, because – actually, I know this because when Shane Steichen got initially hired and we're talking about, hey, you got to – quarterback coach, are you guys going to draft a quarterback? We all assume so. And then in that first press conference, Jim Irsay is like, we don't know what we're going to do yet, but the Alabama guy looks pretty good. He did not say that Florida guy. So, it's a little – you can never know, but I don't know. I feel like that's just saying something because it sounds good now. Yeah, I mean, But at the end of the day, though, I do feel like they feel very good about their pick. And here in Indy, they just hadn't had an answer at quarterback for forever. Since Andrew Luck retired, they kept rotating quarterbacks out. They had Phillip Rivers, he retired, Matt Ryan, Carson Edwards. I'm sorry, not Carson Edwards, Carson Wentz. I'm sorry, I'm a basketball guy. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think that they feel like if we hit on this guy, we're good for the next 10 or 15 years. And if he does hit, not only do you have a franchise quarterback, you probably have a top 5 guy in the league, given how dynamic he is as a runner. Like, I don't think he's as shifty as Justin Fields, but his straight line speed is unbelievable. Like, if he makes you miss, he's gone.
He had a faster 40, I think, than Fields.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the exact same of game speed, but still, like, the dude is fast and he's huge.
It's different. I'll tell you that much. I mean, it's just seeing him. I'm like, wow, you run a 4.39 40 or 4.4 40 at 250, like, and you're 6'4".
Crazy.
And, and then we were asking him, he's like, yeah, I gained some weight. And we're like, oh, why did you try to put on weight? He's like, oh, I didn't. I just, I'm still growing. I'm only 21. And my body just put one more muscle on top of my other muscles. And I'm like, yes, Jesus. I don't have that problem. Or it doesn't happen to me. So I do think this, though, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I think that Anthony Richardson has been put in a position to be much more successful than Justin Fields was when he started.
No question. No question.
The amount of reps, the fact that they're just handing him the keys right now. I feel like Justin Fields' development was delayed because they didn't play him right away. He was like taking snaps with Nick Foles and all that type of stuff. And I just didn't understand why. No, sorry to bring up bad memories, but I'm like, it's night and day, in my opinion, although they're like similar quarterbacks.
No, you're absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, go Ficky. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you're spot on. And not only is it that he has a better setup from the start with the Colts, but if you look at quarterbacks, in the lottery, I guess it's not the NBA, but like top 3 picks,
right.
The Colts have actually done pretty well with their selections. You had Luck, and then you had Manning, right? Us, on the other hand, right? You look at our past ones up there, which I can't even know other than Mitch. I don't even know if we had one Rex Grossman. So yeah, just proves my point. So yeah, I think from an organizational standpoint, just as a whole, he was better. I think he's coming in with a new coach as well. That's always like a positive, because with us, it's we drafted Fields because we're trying to save our asses, basically. Like we know we're on the hot seat. So this is like our, we're just pulling at strings here, right? Hopefully we hit on something. So it's weird to see like you trade up for someone top 15 and then you make him QB3 his rookie year. You don't even make him QB2. Because if you talk about reps, right? QB3 does not get that many reps, right? QB2 doesn't get as much. To 1, but like 3, you're not getting much at all. So I think as a fan base, we view it like we don't count that as his rookie year, because really like the year after that really was. That's when he finally got on the field and played. So I think it's good that they gave him. I was going to ask you that. You answered already, but I was going to ask you, do you feel that was good? They're like, hey, this is your team. Go run it.
I absolutely think so, just because it's reps. And unlike Justin Fields, and I've, argued to the grave about this, the guy wasn't a runner in college. Like, that just kind of happened because of what was around him. So people like say, oh, he's a running back. No, he's not. Like, he barely ran at Ohio State. And he was very good at throwing the ball. Now, he had to speed up his clock, obviously. But like I said, I think that Anthony Richardson is a leg up in that department, with or without Jonathan Taylor. Just the fact that he has Michael Pittman Jr., who's a borderline wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. Alec Pierce. They have Josh Downs, a shifty rookie out of North Carolina, who's been really good so far. So I think that he has a lot more to work with. And then the offensive line, even though it isn't great, it is not what, Justin Fields is working with or not working with, because he was, running for his life most of the time. But I do think that the pressure on both quarterbacks is unique, because for Fields, it's like, can I become this franchise quarterback, this top 10, top 5 quarterback for a franchise that never really had that? When the Bears are winning, even if it was the 85 Bears or the one, the early 2000s, or the, when they made it to the Super Bowl, it was defense, and can we just have some guy placeholder in there? Now it's like, can you become that first true like playmaker, top dog at that position for this franchise? Whereas Anthony Richardson, you're going to the quarterback franchise, where outside of Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning, the Colts have been irrelevant in NFL history. Like, they haven't been good since moving to Indianapolis. So it's different pressures for both guys. But to me, I look at Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson, and Jalen Hurts all kind of on like similar paths, but at similar spots. Like, Jalen Hurts obviously is like best case scenario, Justin Fields, I believe, is like starting to show something and want to show you more, wants to see more from him. And then Anthony Richardson, obviously, is just starting out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So amazing points. I have a question. Kind of want to shift to the defense side of the ball. How did the Bears defense look to you? What any players that surprised you? Maybe that you maybe didn't know about, and you're like, wait, who is this? As far as just making plays,
I would say Tariq Stevenson, and I say this because I knew he was because I saw him at the combine here in Indianapolis, and I might even ask him a question, I can't remember, but there was a special teams play where they were going down, and I believe the Bears were receiving, and Tariq Stevenson just cracks Colts cornerback Tony Brown. And again, we're on the sideline, so you can hear a lot more than you would hear on a normal game day. And all I hear is like every single curse word you could ever imagine from both sides. And I'm like, is this a rookie? Like, this is the rookie Tariq Stevenson? They're like, yeah, like that's how he is. And so he's super intense, super physical. I think that there is going to be a humbling stage there because he talks crazy. And I'm like, at some point, you're going to get humble because it's the NFL. But I like his energy. I like his feel for it. I thought Eddie Jackson had a pretty good camp, really manning that back end. I think they just made it tough on Richardson because, as you all know, the Bears love that like cover two. So they're not going to like make you or let you beat them over the top. And so I think by forcing Anthony Richardson underneath, it really made him a little bit rattled. And their pass rush was pretty good, which is better than what you saw throughout. I almost say like pretty good, better than what they had. Put it like that. The Bears pass rush is like the best in the league, but I do think that they've gotten a little bit better in that. Even without Yannick Ngakoue, I believe participating at all. I don't know. I don't think he was out there.
I don't think he did.
But they did get some pressure on Anthony Richardson, which I thought was promising considering that last year they just had no pass rush at all. And I do think when Yannick Ngakoue does get out there now, I saw him a lot here in Indianapolis. He isn't going to be some great run stopper, isn't all that great at driving back in coverage, but he will get you sacks. I believe there's, death taxes in Yannick Ngakoue getting you at least 5 sacks on the season. That's just what he does. I mean,
right.
For better or worse, what you're going to get from him. And so I think that even, being reunited with some previous coaches that he had over there in Chicago should help him get reacclimated and just continue because he does get, a healthy Yannick Ngakoue, he could probably pencil in for like 8 sacks.
Yeah, history shows he gets at least 8. He gets as high as 12 and as low as 8. So we'll take that because our highest sack leader last year was 4, and it was Jaquan Brisker, our rookie safety. So when you said that the pass rush was actually getting at Richardson, I know still I'm not expecting it's going to be top 15 in any sort of way, but I was really expecting we're still bottom 5. So the fact that we're still, there's some positive on that side. That gives me a little bit of hope. So thank you for that. I'll be able to sleep well. Thank you. It's my biggest concern.
No, so it matters. It matters. You got to have a little pass rush there for sure.
You have to.
Absolutely.
Good.
I don't even think Yannick is. I think the least amount of sacks is 8, right? Even his rookie season, he had 8 sacks somehow, which is awesome.
Even when he got split the season where he's on 2 different teams, he got traded. He literally still had 8. He had like 5 and 3 and 5,
Impressive.
I think, or something like that. Yeah.
So. Impressive. So, James, one player that I think Chicago was very high on, outside of like Stevenson, there's a lot of players on the defense that we're excited about, but one is Kyler Gordon. He has that Spider-Man celebration that he does. He's just year 2, we're expecting that jump. Did you see him kind of pop off at those joint practices, or, was it a little bit more overhyped as far as social media goes?
I don't think it was overhyped. I think everything is overhyped at this point of the year by everyone. Bringing 4 games, right? But I do think that he showed some promise. Now, I didn't get a chance to watch him a ton, but I thought in the 11-on-11, he had, pretty good job in coverage. Didn't really have like too many like pass breakups and stuff like that, but a lot of that comes from decision making, right? I think that when there was the first joint practice, where Anthony Richardson really threw the ball a lot. His completion percentage was pretty high. I think it was like 15 of 19, 11-on-11, but it was a lot of underneath stuff because a lot of these guys were covering pretty good and forcing him take the checks down, take the intermediate throws. And, when there was a couple of throws across the middle, they were forcing him into some bad ones. So I think that he's in a good spot now. And I'm not going to say like, he's making the march to Canton, Ohio right now, but he's showing some promise. And I think fans always get excited when they see a play here or there. But now for me, I think that he's proven he can hold his own. It's just, when lights come on in the regular season game, can you really do it then is my question. Now, I don't, have any reason to believe otherwise, but to me, that's the thing with him. Like, you want to see if guys can play early on. I think he's proven that throughout training camp preseason. Now it's like, okay, you've checked all those boxes. Can you just go out there and play the real games now?
Well, James, on the flip side then, right, because we've talked about some players that did stand out. Was there any one particular person or maybe it was a unit that you were like, okay, like the Colts are dominating the Bears on this end, or this person is getting burnt every play or whatever it may be?
Yeah, no, I never really felt like that because I feel like the Colts were going through so much. And again, I watched most of their offense, and I just felt like they're going through so many changes that it didn't look fluid or dominant at very many points. Even when they did have a couple of touchdowns, they had an illegal man or ineligible man downfield, so they got called back and things like that. So it was hard for me to really discern that. But I do think that, again, the Bears are in a much better spot than they were a year ago, both offensively and defensively. And they're not going to, in my opinion, and this is just being real, they're not going to go out there and win like 12 games. But to me, they should be able to make a massive jump from what the 3 wins they had last year to, in my opinion, being in that 7-8 range and possibly a little bit more. Now, I'm not, expecting them to be great, make the playoffs, whatever. But to me, this improved offense, an improved offensive line, a better, defensive pass rush, and just a better defense overall. Again, not great defense, better defense should help them be in so many more games, because I felt like even last year in the games that they were actually in, it was hard to finish it off or get that final blow because you're like so deficient in one area or the other. They definitely affected
all areas.
Those deficiencies for sure.
Deficient in all areas. James was
I'll try to be nice. It was rough, man.
We lost I think it was 4 or 5 close games where it was literally like one play where it's like, oh wow, if you were just like an average starter, right, in that role.
So I want to ask you all this. I know it's your shot, but I just got to ask. So I was here, obviously, Indianapolis, and they played the Texans. Davis Mills drops back, throws his pass on 4th and 28, I believe, across the middle of the field. Roddy Thomas and the Colts drops the interception. It goes through his hands, and the Texans score. Now, they're still not haven't won the game. They're down by 1, I believe, at that point. They go for 2 and win it. Lovie Smith, he might be the most beloved former Chicago Bear at the moment still. What was the reaction like in Chicago from your perspective? Did you all scream? Did you run around?
I was going crazy. I wasn't even watching the Bears game. I told myself week 17, I'm not watching. Fields is not playing. It's like backups in. I don't care. Right. So I was like, my game is Texans Colts. And I was having a heart attack. I think it was the final 3 minutes, because I think the Texans were up even at half. The Texans were up at half. And then they let the Colts come back. Yep. And then that last one, they marched down and whatnot. And that last play remind me of actually what we saw last night with Tyrese Stevenson, where he threw to the corner end zone, went right through his hands. Right, exactly. You're in the right place. You know what I mean? And there was 2 defenders there too, like for the Colts Texans game, and just dotted in. These are the plays where I'm like, yo, if you're the NFL being rigged, right? You're not helping your case here. You know what I mean? These stories were already written. You're not helping your case here. And then to go for 2 and get it, I think it was 100% pettiness from my favorite Bears coach of all time, Lovie Smith, even before this, because he knew oh, you guys are not giving me a fair chance. I know I'm not coming back. Yo, I'm gonna F up. I'm gonna F up your chances here. And so I loved it. It was one of my I was talking to chat, Dave, on our Twitter group. I said it was one of my favorite games of the year because it was so exciting. We didn't win that many games, so it was a fun one. I loved it.
It just makes you think everything that had to go right last year for the Bears to get that number 1 spot, because you look at that last game, it's crazy. But then you look at the muff punt that cost us 1 game. I think there's 2 actually.
Yeah,
2. I think it was almost 7 close game, 1-score games. So basically it was the opposite of the Minnesota Vikings last year, where the Bears just could not. They just didn't have enough talent to kind of finish out drives, and Fields was doing everything he could, but at the end of the day, just wasn't enough. But crazy as far as just landing that number 1 pick, because we don't have DJ Moore,
No, and
we don't have DJ Moore.
It was remarkable to even just. It's so hard for your quarterback to show growth, right? And your team be the worst team. It's very typically, if you're the first pick, people are like, oh, we're ready to get another quarterback because you probably didn't have the quarterback. You know what I mean? So to luck into that, if that's what we want to call it, to get that number 1, and then you don't have to worry about spending it on such a high value and you can flip it for other great assets. Fantastic. Right. So I that's why I was so excited about it, is because I know how valuable in today's NFL that number 1 pick is. You have to give up the farm for it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so big.
Yeah, I think the Colts are in a similar position this upcoming season where they want to just see progress from Anthony Richardson at any cost. Like, they don't really care. They're not going to say this publicly, but if I'm the GM, if I'm the team owner, I don't really care how many games they win. You want to see Anthony Richardson make progress and potentially be in the top 5 again for the draft, because their secondary is really young and experienced. You know how it is. DBs are all confident, but it's like, confidence can't, win you games. You got to be able to have some experience. So I think they're going to struggle in that area and others. But again, if you told the Colts fans right now, or even the team itself, like, hey, Anthony Richardson is going to show some progress, stay healthy, and we'll have a top 3 pick next year, they take it in a heartbeat, because everyone here, you got the DJ Moore over there. Everyone here wants Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State because of
so do we
playing here. Right. And I told them, I was telling some fans, I was like, man, they have to be awful. Like, that's how good he is. I honestly think that he's arguably the best player coming out of the draft just by his position. He won't go number 1 because obviously Caleb Williams and Drake May. But if you're going like pound for pound, position by position, he could be the best player in the upcoming draft, and Colts fans would love to be able to add a wide receiver 1 immediately on a cheap contract in a guy like that. So we'll see. Yeah, but like I said, they're on different paths as far as Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, but they're similar veins, I think, of like the same type of athlete, big playability, and just dynamic players, man. Exciting guys to watch.
Well, the NFL loves storylines. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was going to say, it's funny you say about Marvin Harrison Jr. because the Bears are loaded up with, draft capital the next year. And if the Panthers are as bad as I think they're not going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be top 5 or worse, top 5, draft pick, but it's definitely possible, especially with Bryce Young and those rookie growing pains. I don't think the receiving, room is as deep as, you would like for a rookie quarterback. So definitely not set up like Richardson, in my opinion. So if the Bears get, a top 3 pick and you have, a shot at Marvin Harrison Jr., that would be crazy. It would be crazy. But I also would love to see him with Anthony Richardson. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They built a statue before he got here, honestly.
His dad was a beast there.
Before they got Richardson, the joke was like, oh, they're tanking for Arch Manning and Marvin Harrison Jr., just run it back with their, with their dads obviously have so much success here. But like I said, I'm excited though, because I think this is a big year for Justin Fields. And honestly, I think it's a big year for the conversation around quarterbacks in general, because unlike in the past, you don't really wait that long anymore to see if a guy can develop. Now, Justin Fields has made strides, but he hasn't really, in my opinion, answered is he absolutely our guy going forward question. I personally think he should be, but that also, in my mind, anticipating that there's going to be another jump there. If there's another jump, I do think that you have to look at it critically, hey, how can we continue this, or is this enough? But I think that he is going to make a jump this season because he has just more talent around him, and the guy works extremely hard. So it's hard for me to picture him just not making any progress. But the key is, is it enough to put to bed all the questions about, is he our guy? Because, to be fair, as you all know, there were rumblings, throughout the draft, is he good enough for the Bears to stick with him? And to be honest, I think the only reason, not the only reason, one of the biggest reasons they stuck with him is because of Bryce Young's size. If he was 6'3", doing what he was doing, I think they would have took him, and a lot of teams would have done the same thing. But Justin Fields is there, year 3 on the horizon, so we'll see what he's got in store for sure. But like I said, 1,000 yards DJ Moore, book it, bet that, because the guy he was lighting them up in 1-on-1s, 7-on-7, 11-on-11. Was
he the best receiver on both teams, as far as Pittman goes? Because I know I like Pittman, but do you think Moore is even
that's the question.
Kind of a?
I'll probably lean towards Moore, but I have to say this too. Pittman, he's in a bad spot because his quarterback has changed every single year. He's going to his 4th season. This will be his 4th different week 1 starting quarterback. He had 3 different starting quarterbacks last year with, Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, Nick Foles. None of them were any good last year. So I think that, for a guy who caught 99 passes last year and didn't crack 1,000 yards, he's productive, but he needs people to just throw it down the field. So I think I'll have a better evaluation of him this year, even with the rookie quarterback, because Anthony Richardson, no doubt about it, can at least throw the ball down the field. Last year, man, it was very much just dink and dunk and these short passes. And you do what you have to try to move the chains, but the Colts' offense last year was one of the worst in the league, and they had no big playability without Richardson. But if you're asking me right now today, I probably lean more towards Moore because I've seen just more production from him, and I think that, again, he's a guy who can just go anywhere and produce. Now, can Michael Pittman Jr. do the same? I'm not sure. And also, Moore just has, I think, more separation skills. Pittman's a bigger body, contested catches, those type of things. But I like the guys who are able to just create separation without necessarily having to be bigger to do it.
Yeah, that's nice. I actually had a question going off of that, though, with Anthony Richardson. Obviously, we know he has an arm. And first off, if you haven't seen that video where he jumps off one leg, slings it, bro. Yeah. It's like a can. He shoots it out of his chest.
It still hasn't landed, Ficky.
Yeah, bro. He threw that thing so far. So we know he has the arm talent, but the precision is NFL is a game of inches, especially with that ball placement. Rookie, so keep that in mind. Obviously, we know. The accuracy can be improved, but is the accuracy at a point where you feel comfortable, like as a rookie, we're like, okay, or is it more like, oh, it's really not anywhere where it needs to be. We have some lame ducks kind of coming out of his arm, things like that. Do you see concerns there?
I think the biggest concern I see is when he gets rushed, he throws it high because he doesn't get the lower half of his body set. So whenever he gets his feet set and drives the ball, it usually goes where he wants to go. Now, he has to work on his touch because he's got a fastball, and it's like you got to get the curveball, the slider, the other, because sometimes it's the right decision and it's on time, but he just rips it so hard, and it's like it's a screen pass, dude. You can't throw it that hard, and they're not going to catch him any of those. But I do think when he misses, it's because he's under pressure and he just kind of uncorks one at a different off-platform angle, and that comes back to bite you because you're not able to get the same amount of torque and the same amount of precision on your passes. So that's the biggest thing. He's not missing all over the place. He isn't making horrible decisions. I think it was kind of overstated at Florida because, quite honestly, he didn't have much talent around him. But he has great pocket, presence, doesn't run, doesn't get rattled. And when he gets his feet set, the ball usually goes where it's supposed to go. It's just, again, get the ball down because sometimes he'll throw something high and it's preseason, joint practices. The Bears aren't going to light up their receivers and stuff like that and vice versa. But I'm like, man, in the regular season, you throw it high and the guy open up his rib cage, he's going to feel that because some linebacker's going to hit him. So you got to make sure you keep the ball down going forward. And that's something that he's admitted he's got to work on. And, he's steady working at it every day. And the difference between, I talked about this with someone else, with him and Fields and Bryce Young and Trevor Lawrence, Anthony Richardson did not grow up going to all these elite camps. He didn't have a personal trainer. He wasn't this powerhouse high school football player. He was good, but he wasn't, top of his class, top 5 recruit Justin Fields was or Bryce Young. So a lot of this is still kind of new to him as far as just having a quarterback coach. He hasn't had a quarterback coach since he was 16 or 15 or whatever. So, and also he's still really young. There was this, I think Wikipedia had it wrong for a while. We thought he was 21, around the combine. He was turning 22. He was 20. During the combine, and I think Elite turned 21 right after he got drafted. So there was a month there where he couldn't even go out and celebrate with a drink or anything because he was 20. and then there is some youth to that too, because when we talked to him about his adjustments, it's the first time in his life he's moving out of Florida. So that's an adjustment. He's got his whole family with him. His little brother goes to local high school around here. So all of that is coming along, but I think that he has a chance to be great. It's just, potential is backhanded compliment. You got a lot of it. People love it when you reach it and hate it when you don't. So we'll see how it goes.
Very boomer bust. And I think that's what people kind of have.
I'm with it. I like the excitement of it. I like the gamble, the roll, whatever you want to call it, because to me, the Colts had to rip that Band-Aid off and stop going out and getting, retread quarterback too. Yeah.
We were.
And I think last year also humbled them and made them realize you're not as close as you thought. I think after the JT explosion in 2021, where he's top 5 running back in the league, top 5 player or whatever, and they missed the playoffs, it was okay, if we just get a quarterback, we can go on a run. No, last year really showed they, had got some big deficiencies in other areas, and so it's all quarterback now. It's all about the quarterback, and there is rumblings about JT every day because he's here, but he's not here. We'll see how that goes, but for the sake of Anthony Richardson, it would help if he had JT in the backfield. I'll say that for sure.
Of course.
It's tough to stop.
Yeah,
that's having to deal with
RPO with them.
Dealing with Richardson
and no thanks. And speaking of running, oh wait a second. Speaking of running, could you envision him having a season like Fields did last year, where it's like kind of doesn't have maybe the line's not as good as what you expect, so this man's kind of running for his life a lot. Obviously, he's athletic enough, and he definitely did way more running in college than Fields did. So obviously, he can do it. Do you expect to see that in this offense? Are we expected to see some of those built in more, run plays? I know you're not in the room where it happens, scheming up the plays and whatnot, but what have you seen during camp?
Yeah, Shane Steichen always, it's like a running joke on the beat. We ask him a question, and he's like, I'm not talking scheme. We're like, all right. So much for that. But it's obvious that, like, for example, when Gardner Minshew was in there were much less read options and RPOs and zone reads than when Anthony Richardson was in there. So I do think they're going to have a lot more design runs, and just that run threat should make life easier on him as a runner and as a passer, because you always have to account for that little bit, of doubt where, like, could he pull this and run? So I do think we're going to see more of that. I don't think we're going to see 1,000 yards, because I thought what Fields did last year was just incredible, honestly. And again, I don't know if Richardson is the make you miss type enough like Justin Fields. Like I said, I think Justin Fields, like, his juking ability, his elusiveness is better than Anthony Richardson, whereas Anthony Richardson, it's kind of like put one foot in the ground and just go. And he can run you over, get through the arm tackle, get you some first downs that way. But he has the end of speed, but I don't think he has like that, wiggle to him. And quite honestly, he hasn't needed it most of his life, because he can just, be stronger than the other guy. I mean, I looked at him sometimes and I'm like, I looked it up because I got curious. He's like the same exact size as Micah Parsons, like almost identical weights.
Yo, that's so big.
You're right. And I'm like, he's a quarterback. So it's insane. But I don't think we're going to see what Justin Fields did, because what he did was special, right? I mean, I believe it was a rushing record for a quarterback, and that's not something you're going to see very often. And I mean, honestly, for the Colts' sake and for the Bears' sake, you don't want to see it again, because if he's running for that much, something went severely wrong in your passing game and your offensive line.
Yeah. My question would be, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the most exciting thing with Fields is, like, his running ability is something, his breakaway speed almost. Like, if he makes one guy miss, we saw it last year, he can take it 60 yards.
Yeah.
And he had like 3 or 4 of them, and he had like 2 taken away due to penalty or something like that. But if Fields can still, grow as a passer and still have those big 60-yard explosive plays, I think it would be so fun it'd be something we haven't really seen. Like, obviously Lamar Jackson's a great runner, but I think Fields is just a little bit better as far as just that next gear and taking it there. But what were you going to say, Ficky?
I was going to say a big piece too. I want to see what you probably haven't seen, because you can't touch the quarterback in all this offseason, is a big thing with a lot of Fields' big runs is that some defensive end tries to get him down and he slips off like he's got petroleum jelly on him and fucking takes off. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see because we just said this is Micah Parsons' size down there. So Micah Parsons normally doesn't have to try to tackle himself. So it'll be interesting to see how many, because I expect that he's going to have some big runs where it's like, 2 or 3 people tried to bring me down. They got an arm. I slipped off. And then now there's no defensive line pressure, right? Or people think it's a sack and I'm gone for 60. Good luck catching.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the highlight tape is going to be crazy. If you play Justin Fields' highlight tape from last year, just all like the good plays, you think the guy, 10, 20 years from now, you can tell your kids, this is the best in the world, the best player ever. Because so I expect some of that same sort of magic with Anthony Richardson, but also some of the same type of like, oh my gosh, what were you thinking on that throw or that turnover, even like the fumble and stuff like that. So you want to see him have those moments, but I'm just embracing what I think will come, which will be the 3 touchdown game where he has 2 rushing touchdowns and this incredible long touchdown pass, and everyone thinks he's the greatest quarterback ever in Indianapolis. And he comes out the next week and he has 3 interceptions in like the first a quarter and a half, and everyone tells me how terrible he is. So I think I'm ready to see how he handles all of that. And again, he's handled everything so far very maturely. He came out, I believe, might have been his first, second press conference in rookie minicamp, and he's like, he comes up there, gets to the mic, he drops his head, and we're like, what the heck is going on with Anthony Richardson? Like, he's in a bad mood. And he raises his head and he goes, literally, I'm just here so I won't get fined. And just busts out laughing, and we're like, and I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be like feeling all this pressure and under all this scrutiny. And he's kind of just like, hey, I'm here to work hard. I know it's going to take a lot of hard work. I'm going to make mistakes, but he embraces all of it. And so it's been exciting to see. And it's funny because at the combine, I asked him about being a project quarterback, which is like an inside joke here in Indianapolis. Oh my God. And he did not like the question. He repeated like 4 times at the combine. And so I finally asked a question and get it out there. And he's like, I don't even know what that means. And everyone's like, oh man, like he kind of, got off on the wrong foot. And then someone else asked him about being like a 1-year starter. And he came back to me and he's like, well, this guy said I'm a project. So I guess I got more to prove. And I was like, dang, like I didn't say that. And so when he got drafted here, the first thing I told him, like when he came in for his first, like, after, flew him in, had the press conference, like the first one in person, I said, hey, Anthony, I'm the guy who asked you about being a project at the, the combine. He's like, oh, I remember. And the entire room just starts laughing or whatever. But he's a really cool dude. Like, it wasn't like one of those, I'm going to like hold this forever against you. It was like, oh, it's like this funny joke. And then I asked him a better question. I think just the wording was better. I was like, hey, man, I understand that you're extremely talented, but there are certain, deficiencies. So how do you find that balance between, I know I'm different. You've never seen anything like me before, obviously with his combine stuff, but also have things I have to get better at. And he's like, you know what? I'm just chasing greatness. I got to work hard at it. I know I'm going to get scrutinized. And I thought it was very mature for a guy who's 21 and is going to have to deal with all of it. And I think that I even asked Courtney Cronin this, who covers the Bears for ESPN. I was like, hey, how does Justin Fields handle this? She was like, you know what? He handles it like a pro. Even when it was ugly last year, even when it was ugly during his rookie year, he always answered everything as a pro. And I think that's as big a factor as anything is how do you handle all of it? Because, being great on the field is one thing. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks great on the field, but like to be the true franchise, top 5, top 10 guy in the league, you got to be able to, be a good leader and a good, keep a level head when all the, the criticism comes.
Well, he's really had, when it comes to his character, he's really only had positive things about him, even all the way from the combine. Because I think at the combine, you remember there was the story about him giving the pizza to the homeless, and then he helped cleaned up after at like one of the player meetings with people. So, and then now there's stories recently, I think this week, all about like how he's been staying out hours afterwards doing signatures with fans.
I got a video of that, man, in my phone, like crazy. I didn't even think it was like, you're just in a moment. You're like, oh, it's a cool moment. He's signing autographs, whatever. And I posted it, and it went like everywhere. I woke up because the NFL like took the video and tagged me in it. And so, you wake up to a notification from like at NFL, and I'm like, what the heck is this? And it's a video of him, and it kind of blew up everywhere. But it's funny because some people might look at him like, oh, like that's that one cool moment. He really has done that pretty much every time. And one of the fans was kind of mad. They're like, why would the team force him to leave? Because he can't sit there forever, man. He would. I think that he honestly would. But I want to say that particular day, and the reason I even had time to get it was because, even after all the interviews, he was there for like 30 minutes signing he had to have signed that day like probably 100 autographs. This is like, and then also took probably like 10 selfies on all the phones and stuff. And they literally had to come over there and tell him like, hey, bro, we got to go. Like, you got to debrief, meet with the team, got to talk to your coach or whatever. And the guy's just out there all day. So I think that, again, there's probably been similar stories about Justin Fields. I saw a lot of his jersey here, out here in the Indy area when there was joint practice going on. So I'm excited to see it. And again, I don't follow every team as much as I used to, because when you're on a beat, you got to like focus on your team, and you feel like you're in like this tunnel or this cave where it's just Colts. But peripherally, I'm always looking at, okay, what's happening in Philly, what's happening in Chicago, because these two quarterbacks are what Richardson could be, in my opinion.
Right.
Good points.
And we built our model off of, oh, my bad. I was going to say the last thing. We built our model off of, the peripheral of the Eagles. If you saw what our GM did, it's like, hey, we saw this success with Hurts. Obviously, Hurts had a lot more, things already foundationally there. But the idea of like, hey, kind of build them up, throw talent, get rid of all the excuses, and kind of let them ball. So I think every team does that in all these GMs. So I'm not surprised. And we definitely have our eyes on the Eagles to see if we kind of continue in the steps that they did to kind of get us to the promised land. Exactly. Hopefully. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
So, James, appreciate you joining us again. We'll let you go here in a minute. You've been here for a while, but the running back room, JT, obviously, he's probably top 5 running back in the league. As far as the Bears rushing attack, there's kind of like mystery there. We don't know exactly who's going to be lead it. Probably Herbert, but who do you think stuck out? Was it, how did Roschon Johnson look, the rookie? Just who stood out in that room just during those 2 joint practices, if you were able to kind of catch any of them
Yeah, I think Roshan showed something for sure, but I think Khalil is probably the most consistent guy out there. I'm not saying he's gonna be this wow factor every play, but I thought he was consistent. And I don't know necessarily if you need like that true number one running back to be successful, because in my opinion, now it didn't help last year in Philly with Jalen Hurts, but I actually asked Shane Steichen about this because he was the offensive coordinator in Philly before he came to the Colts. I was like, how do you view it? Do you think you need to have like that bell cow, or can you do it by committee? And he's kind of like, it helps when you have a guy, you can turn to, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have, one guy. So I think whether it's Roshan or Khalil, they're able to produce the yards through their scheme rather than like the player, if that makes sense. Like the scheme will get you the yards as long as these guys, don't wait around their holes and make sure that they, stay healthy and things like that. So I didn't see like very much from either because I wasn't paying too much attention to him, but I do think that the two I saw, Roshan looked good. Looked exciting. You're just wondering like, okay, he's going to have probably 2 or 3 plays this year where you're like, man, that looked really good. But I do think that Khalil is probably going to be the more consistent guy where maybe it isn't on the wild plays, but they're the ones when you look up at the end of the game, like, okay, that really mattered, like that third down catch or the third down run, early in the second quarter or something like that.
Well, if you look at the shape of the way the NFL's going, like I think they want this committee because it means, if you have a bell cow, you have to pay them. And right now they don't want to. Well, you guys actually know. Right now you don't want to pay the bell cow. So, they don't.
Man, I feel like I'm on JT watch every day. The biggest reason why he's upset, or I would assume he's upset because he hasn't talked since June, is that they didn't offer him an extension. Like everyone's kind of been confused on that front, where people are like, oh, he just didn't accept an offer or he's demanding all this money. No, the Colts didn't even lowball him. They took the ball and went home. So I think that's why he's so upset. And I don't know where we're going to be with that. I read through the CBA where he has no leverage, in my opinion, like Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley, because those guys aren't under contract technically. Well, Saquon is now because he signed, but when you franchise tag, you're not necessarily under contract. So you can like miss training camp, preseason, don't get fined for anything. If you miss time with 1 year left on your rookie deal, they can fine you $40,000 a day.
Right.
And then you also have to play at least 6 games throughout this. I'm kind of paraphrasing it because it's easier to say it that way through the CBA. But a lot of people don't know this. You have to have like 4 accrued seasons to become a free agent, or how it works is JT has 3 right now. So let's say everyone always throws this out there like, oh, he can just sit out and not play. He'll be no. If he sits out and doesn't honor his contract, basically what happens is his contract would freeze. It would go to the next year, and then he would owe another full season to the Colts. So everyone who's saying like, oh, he can hold out, he doesn't have to play for them anymore, he demanded a trade. The point is, if they don't want to trade him, he has to show up to at least honor the contract and play at least 6 games, at least 6, to be able to get free of that contract. And I read through it, I was like, oh my gosh, the NFL is like the mafia. You sign a deal, you are hooked on that deal unless they want to cut you because you're old or you're injured or whatever, but you are not getting free of anything you put your signature on in the NFL because they basically own your rights for the next few years. And then the franchise tag, obviously, as we know, for his position group, hinders his ability to really like push the needle. Like people keep comparing him to Michael Pittman Jr., for example. Pittman hasn't got an extension, but he doesn't care because he's the wide receiver. If he gets franchise tagged, it's going to be $20 million plus. And then honestly, it's better to be a top 30-ish receiver like him than to be a top 5 running back. You're going to get paid. You're going to get long-term security, all those things. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think for the Colts' sake, they hope that he's going to be back playing this season for them and by week 1. But, I mean, we're 3 weeks out right now, I feel like, and you just don't know what's going to happen and if he's going to, dig in his heels and accept all the fines and the missed money. But it's a sticky situation for sure, and one that I'm sure a lot of the league will look at to see how it plays out. But JT has not smiled, I feel like, since
I wouldn't either. Where's my money?
I mean,
where is my money?
It's tough. But at the same time, I'm like, man, maybe you got to look in the mirror and be like, hey, I have no way out but to just play this contract out, have a bounce back season, and look pretty good. Because to me, the one thing that's hurting him is that he didn't have a great season last year. So it's like they can point to that and say, hey, you were hurt. Is this a sign of what's to come? Come back this year, ball out, even if you're not that happy to be here. And then at least next year they can franchise tag you or whatever. You can have more leverage than them. But right now, it feels like everything he's done is a year early. So we don't know. He's still listed as on the PUP list, physically unable to perform, got an ankle injury, but he had ankle surgery back in January, and we're 7 months later. Hasn't been around the team, and he left.
Okay.
He's traveling to Philly. We'll join practice next week, but is his first practice really going to be a joint one with Philly in that defensive line? No. So we'll see how it goes.
It's interesting. It's really because I don't know what these running backs are going to do because the CBA was just done, last year, 2 years ago? And so the next one
doesn't expire until 2030.
Yeah, so you got a long time to figure. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
It is.
And then on top of that, we could talk to fullbacks. Maybe I'll do a story on that and reach out to some fullbacks that had their positions dissolved because at this point, I almost feel like you want to get paid as a running back. You got to be like a Alvin Kamara or Christian McCaffrey where you're able to basically masquerade as a running back / receiver. And that's why Deebo Samuel doesn't want to be labeled as a running back because if you get that label, you're not going to get paid. So we'll see how it all plays out. But, it's definitely outside of Anthony Richardson, that's topic number 2 here in Indy.
Rightfully so. Crazy. He can help you win some games, especially with a rookie quarterback.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yes.
You need we just talked about it. You, as a rookie quarterback, you need as many weapons as possible.
And JT's
a damn good one
with 2 of the best athletes in the game on the field. Come on, man. So it looks like
how's your cap situation? Is it really because again these running backs? This man's not going to be going against he's not really going to take that much.
It's actually not crazy. It's not crazy because unlike, and I've said this all summer, unlike Dalvin Cook who got cut, the Vikings paid their quarterback. The Raiders, they paid Jimmy G a bunch of money. So Josh Jacobs was like, man, I can't get paid. Well, they paid the quarterback. Same thing with Saquon Barkley. They New York paid Daniel Jones. The Colts haven't paid a quarterback yet. He's on a rookie deal. So to me, you don't. If I was from strictly business standpoint, I still probably wouldn't extend JT before I had to. I would just franchise tag him next year and the year after, and that might dissolve our personal relationship. But if you feel like it's really worth it to just make amends or whatever, I think you just give him, let's say $25 million guaranteed, 3 years, $30 million, or whatever it is, 3 years, $35 million. And by the time his contract is up, Richardson's contract is up. So you can decide then, okay, is our quarterback our guy? We're going to cash in with him. And then, hey, JT, if you still want to be here, you got to take a price cut or a discount. But they haven't even done that for him, and which is, again, it's not wrong for the Colts to do that. It's what the system has worked out in their favor. But I do understand on both sides, where that tension might be. So I'm not sure it's get resolved anytime soon, but we'll see.
I think it's interesting with JT because he's so productive, and kind of like David Montgomery. One of the biggest topics heading into this past offseason was, are we going to go ahead and get a deal done with Montgomery? He went to Detroit, but he went on 3 years, $18 million, and it was $11 million guaranteed.
Yeah,
for a running back, he's getting more than some of the bigger names, Ezekiel Elliott, and now JT. JT can get that, in my opinion, if not more.
So, and I've had this, and I got to think about it more, but. I'm almost at the point now with running backs where maybe they shouldn't look at the franchise tag as such a bad thing, because maybe that is your only big payday going forward if you're a top running back, because if you get franchise tag, it's guaranteed for that full year, and I believe next year the running back tag is projected to be like $13 million. Like you said, you're not going to get $13 million guaranteed anywhere else, or at least across multiple seasons. So it's almost like, if you're I guess blessed enough to receive a franchise tag, it's better than nothing, because if you don't get that, you're not going to get any money. You see all these guys, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, like I said, others, even Tony Pollard had to re-sign on a franchise tag, but it's one of those things where you're not going to get these huge contracts anymore. And even for Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, those deals were a couple years ago at this point. So it's not going to become, I don't think, a new trend. Bijan Robinson is already showing how great he can be. Maybe he can be the exception to the rule, but even then, the Falcons could just look up and be like, well, we'll just franchise tag you. And so, it wasn't designed to do that, but it's not the NBA, man. The NFL, when they want you, they can really keep you there. And I think it's because, and maybe it's something that we might not even see in our lifetime, or maybe when we're old and gray, but I think they would have to fight for not getting rid of the franchise tag, but where you can't repeat it. Like that's where it gets like problematic. Like if you're a running back, you can get franchise tag twice, and the team doesn't have to commit much money to you either time, and they own you for 2 years. And in Bijan Robinson's case, he's actually not worse. We have worse spot than JT because JT was a 2nd round pick. First round picks have that 5th year option, so they got you for 5th years dirt cheap. Then they can franchise tag you right after that for another year dirt cheap
again.
Right, and then when
7
you're
years.
free, you're in your late 20s, and everyone says you're washed up and you can't get paid. So it's a cold world.
But again, you got to wait till 2030 for that because that's all CBA stuff. So,
and do you think these owners are gonna get that up? No. Like no, they will fight like hell, and if hell freezes over, they will fight on the ice. Like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's not like because it's calculated based off like averages of the past years of that position, something like that. That's why it's so low. It's not like when Kirk Cousins did it in Washington. Right. He got like $100 million. You know what I mean? Yep. In that case, somebody like a wide receiver franchise tag me twice. Okay, I'm getting 30 here, 30 here. Like I'm set. You know what I mean? Yep. But with these guys, it's so cheap. Like, well, all the deals are cheap, but it's like it's not the risk is almost not worth the reward for those 2 years because now once you're out, you're old and. Like you said, there's that stereotype of, he's got miles on him. So now he's useless. So I think what it's going to do though, I think is we always see this, like for the fullbacks, it dissolved because what happens is at a younger age, less people start playing fullback or these schemes, there's less fullbacks in it. So I think the running backs that we're going to start to see in about 5 to 10 years are going to be much different than what we see now. Yeah, we're going to see very much less of those Jonathan Taylors, those Derrick Henrys, you never see Derrick Henrys because that guy's an animal, but you're going to see less of those like old school type runners, at least in my prediction. At some point, it'll probably make a cycle like fashion. It always comes back. That's just how these things work. But next couple of years, I don't think we're going to be seeing that stereotypical running back.
Yeah, man. I live in Indiana, covered high school football here for a while, a couple of years ago. And if you go to some 1A school in the middle of nowhere, they're probably running the wing T still. And you got traditional running back. But, I don't think the running back conversation is going to change too much as far as that trickle-down effect. When people are like, they're never going to play running back. Your kid wasn't going to the NFL anyway. Relax. But at the higher level things, you might start to see players, either, like you said, Ficky, like add that versatility to be a pass catcher out of the backfield, or if you're really, really athletic, do you just move somewhere else and try to get paid as like a safety or as a wide receiver, as a tight end or something like that? Now, I don't know if how much we'll see, but I do think it's a conversation to be had and something that a lot of great athletes at 1%, I want to say, or that less than 1%, they might have those conversations. But for, like I said, the average high school player in Indiana, don't worry
about it. It's not happening.
Yeah,
we're not talking to you.
You're not going to be Zeke or you're not going to be JT or any of these people out here. It is fine. Like your career will end up right after high school. You get a real job like me. It's all good.
By the way, James, where are you at in Indiana? Because we're both.
I'm in Indianapolis.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't know if you're like.
No. Actually, I'm from Romeoville, Illinois, and I got my first job covering high school sports in Northwest Indiana. So I covered, from Gary to Hammond, East Chicago, to Kankakee Valley, to
real north,
Valparaiso and Porter County, Lake County. I was all over, and the region treated me very well. So got a lot of love for that place in this state for sure.
Cool, yeah.
You said the region?
For the region.
Yeah, man, the region 219, man. They had my first shot in this. Did high school sports for 2.5 years there, and I loved it. I got lifetime friendships. At this point, a bunch of little brothers and sisters and coaches and mentors. And I still go back whenever I can, talk to the different teams. And it's funny because I have all of them on social media. And so they'll swipe up one of my stories every now and then and tell me like, hey man, you talked to LeBron when you covered the Pacers, and you talked to Steph Curry, and now you're talking to, Fields and whoever else. And you were just talking to me 2 years ago. So hopefully it's like a bit of an inspiration for them to just dream big. Cause I'm like, I had no idea I would be here. Cause I was just back then, I thought I made it when I was in high school sports. And then now it's like, oh, I guess there's more to it. So it's been very, very fun to be in this space. And I don't take it for granted at all. They make fun of me on the beat because I take pictures everywhere and I try to remember where I'm at, because you just never know if you're going to be back there again, right?
Right.
So definitely enjoy it because it is cool. Like it's stressful at times. It's crazy. Like you wish that, you could be off, and some of those Schefter notifications, if they're Colts related, they might ruin your day. You consume it a lot differently as a writer than as a fan, but
Right.
it is fun to be here. And I mean, I haven't paid for a game in I don't know how long. So you got to work the games, but I mean, I can't complain too much.
Who's your favorite player that you, at least in the current regime right now, like who do you love interviewing on the Colts?
Who do I love interviewing on the Colts?
Who's your favorite?
Player Franklin, linebacker. He set the single season tackles record last year. Former 7th round pick. They wrote a big story about him and his background. Grew up with his mom and his grandma, who died while he was in high school, and got taken in by his aunt, and basically beat every single odd you could possibly beat to get to the NFL. And he is as solid as they come. You know, win, lose, or draw. They did have a draw last year against Houston. That was my first NFL game ever I covered with a tie. That was crazy. Yeah, he's a solid dude. But, I mean, all of them, you get to know them a lot better throughout the season. And you start to appreciate how much they put into it, like going into locker rooms after the game, seeing the carnage. It's almost like, you know, like a battlefield in a sense. Like, I'm not saying it's, you know, going off on a tour, but there is a certain level of violence you see because guys are banged up. And one thing I've learned and just picked up on is like, even if the guy's like on the injury report, he's really hurt because by week 2, everyone's hurt. Like everyone is legitimately hurt. So if you're hurt enough to go on the injury report and if you're hurt enough to miss a game, you're really in pain because all of them, you know, play through a bunch of different stuff that doesn't, you know, always get reported. Because there will be times where I like go back there and I'm like, hey man, like what's that, you know, stitch on your hand? It's like, oh, like I, you know, something about hand open, you know, I was doing this swim move or something like that, you know, whatever, but it never came up in the injury report at all. I mean, we had a linebacker last year, Bobby Okereke, who's now with the Giants. He broke his finger during the game. It was like a compound fracture where it came through the skin. They went back there, put it back and stitched it up, and he kept playing. And he looked at me like I was crazy for asking him that. You know, I was like, hey, it wasn't considered sitting down. He's like, oh, it's just a finger. I'm like, just a finger? Like, dude, it was going the wrong way. So, again, you gain appreciation for a lot, and I'm sure it's the same way for the Bears. Like, when you see just how much they put into it. And
violent game.
I'm covering the NFL as opposed to the NBA because I've done both. The NBA, you go on a 4-game losing streak. It's not like the end of the world. The NFL, every game, like guys don't rest. There are no load management. You're only resting if you've won, you know, 13 games. You're like a lock for the number 1 seed or something like that. Guys play.
So the Chiefs.
Exactly. And then they put so much into every game. And even during the rough seasons, when they win, you hear all the music like coming out of the locker room, guys, because they put a week of effort into this one, you know, 3-hour window. And then vice versa, when they lose, you can hear a pin drop, whether they're a good team or a bad team. So I like kind of like the highs and lows of riding the wave of all of that because you got to be crazy to play football and crazy to like really, really play through everything that they play through because it is not easy at all.
And that's why Fields was running for his goddamn life last year because that man got folded like a lawn chair in so many games that he's like, please don't let anybody touch my body.
Exactly.
Like, but I think he was running to not get injured. Like,
hey, look, hey, you run faster than people chasing you, man.
Man, it works. So,
yep.
And the most impressive thing with that last year is like he didn't complain one time. Like he didn't throw his teammates under the bus. Similar to like Anthony Richardson, just a high character guy as far as just at the presser. You know, he's just a pro. And hopefully, you know, this year it kind of changes as far as just, you know, more exciting times. He's not running for his life. But
James, I have one last question for you. AFC South, it's pretty open. Y'all taking it? Could you see y'all taking it?
No, it's Jacksonville. I don't think it's that wide open. I think that Jacksonville got better.
Yeah.
They took a leap last year. They out Kevin Ridley this year. I mean, if you ask any offense in the NFL, if they can add a healthy 1,400-yard receiver, if they're better than last year, they would be. So I think that's their division to lose. And then I think the Colts, in my opinion, they should be like third. I don't know about them beating the Titans. I feel like the Titans, for whatever reason, they just make the game ugly and just out-bully them for whatever reason. But Houston, on paper, does not have the same amount of talent as the Colts. So, unlike last year, you can't go winless against Houston. You can't tie Houston in week 1 and then have that Hail Mary, you know, Lonnie Smith kissed ball go into the end zone for a touchdown. You lose to them again. So, to me, I have them winning. I had them at 5-12 this year. And that's because I'm going to play Anthony Richardson a lot, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. At the most, I would say 7 wins at the most. But I don't think they're going to be all that good this year, and I'm excited to see what they do in Jacksonville because that seems like a team that is, you know, they might have turned a corner where they have a guy, they have the coach, and as you all know, like once your guy becomes a guy and then he realizes himself, I feel like that's what Bears fans are probably praying for, right? Like you get a dude, it just changes the scale. I mean, Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, he's not going to feel like I don't know if you would say he's like a top 5 quarterback, but that team, they feel like when they go out with him every single game, we're going to win because of him. And that's what they obviously want to see.
We saw that with last year because I think that was one of the biggest things with Fields was rookie year. It was like, bro, there's no confidence, which there shouldn't be. The man, I mean, he got beat to shit. So, and then last year we started to see that in the beginning. The first 4 or 5 games were like, but then once we kind of started, these guys can't catch me. Oh, okay. And you saw more swagger, more confidence, more morale to where obviously there's a lot more room to grow and whatnot. But I think that's helped shift like the culture of our team. And I think that will happen with Richardson too. Like once it's like, oh, I got this now, it's starting to click and we start to see big wins and things like that, the team is going to rally behind you. And that's why the quarterback position, as you mentioned in the beginning of the pod, right? The Colts have not been good without Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning.
It's true.
The Bears have not been good because we've never had anyone close to Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning. So the quarterback position is that important. And so I think that's why we just spent an hour talking about the quarterback only. So I'll definitely be watching Richardson this year. It's exciting. I hope he just goes crazy. So
it'll be fun.
Absolutely. So James, we like to end whenever we have a guest on, you're a Bears fan, so it works out perfectly. Otherwise we would ask something else. But since you are a Bears fan, lifelong fan, who is your all-time favorite Chicago Bears player and why?
Good question. I guess I had to take the fan hat off for a while now. And again, it's easier because I love storytelling more than I love sports, actually. So it's been easy for me to kind of be pretty neutral to my fans. My family will like text me about it, and I'm like, I can't really watch them right now. I'm locked in on my team, covering them, being the best writer I can be. But I would say for my childhood fandom, it was Devin Hester.
Let's go.
I felt like
let's go.
And I will say this, maybe I feel like a fan now, but he's a Hall of Famer in my eyes. I mean, he changed games.
Should have been first ballot, man.
And and to me, and it's funny because I've told the story so many times here in Indianapolis. I'm like, man, I thought when Devin Hester ran the opening kickoff back in the Super Bowl that was destiny. Like I was like, I know they're a better team, but God has on Jesus has on a Bears jersey today. And then when Peyton Manning threw that pick on their opening drive, I was like, we're cooking with gas
locked
now.
In, yeah.
And
James, you forgot we had 2 words. You forgot at quarterback we had a guy, Sexy Rexy.
But
you forgot about that.
That season had to be one of the most fun as a fan because they were never supposed to go that far, but they won in such crazy ways. And basically, Devin Hester was part of the offense. Yep. Like you could just pencil him in for a touchdown like every other game, and sometimes multiple times in a game. So he's my favorite player, and I think that he was someone who was just really, really, really good. And I guess my sleeper pick, not a favorite, but someone I thought would be really good for a long time, just got an unfortunate injury, was Johnny Knox. Like Johnny Knox a lot. He was fun, man. He added like a certain deep threat element, big playability. I thought he was gonna be like the next Deshaun, Jackson or something like that. Unfortunate for him, but those are from some fun years, man. No, that was the glory days for me. Like I'm a Bears fan, not because of what happened before I was born. It was because of that era where I really like fan. So
I think Johnny Knox is how the Bulls feel about D Rose. You know what I mean? That's like your loved piece. Is like, man, if your knees weren't made of glass, like they'd have a statue for you now. I love Johnny Knox too.
It's been a unique this journey because I grew up as a Bears fan, watching Lovie Smith, right? And then I went to University of Illinois and I ended up covering Lovie Smith as like a student reporter. So I saw him as a head coach and got to meet him, and I'm like, wow, like this guy was in the Super Bowl a few years ago. And then fast forward to last year, I'm like, there's Lovie Smith again. The reason the Bears are going to get the number 1 pick. And so it just goes like full circle, I guess, in this business. But it definitely
get away from him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that Devin Hester definitely, that's the guy who defines my childhood. Like I would go crazy with him and Madden for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Boy, I think it's in the crazy about
he's
that.
On 100, right? What is he like 100? I was like, his feet was 100.
Only player in Madden history to have 100.
Special, man, special.
Him and Vic are like the most OP players.
Right.
History,
So I think we're on a 3-episode streak right now of every guest. Kyle Brandt was on last, and then who was the last one, Fick, or before that? Anyways, 3-episode streak of each person saying Devin Hester. yeah, Devin Hester's been the pick as far as all-time favorites, which
and it's ours too.
Oh yeah, easy.
First
easy.
ballot, easily. How you can't be the best at your position in NFL history. You can't be the best at your position in NFL history and not make the Hall of Fame. That makes zero sense. That's the whole point of the Hall of Fame. You're literally not like, second best. No, you are number one.
And we're not going to see anything like it again because of the rule changes now. We
exactly.
And all that. So I still remember when he caught it, like pretended to walk and just took off in the end zone. And I remember thinking like, this guy's nuts. And it was 100 yards later, end zone. Like
about that field goal miss where he just kind of
right. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was.
Or when he would just be dancing back there, Soldier Boy, crank that,
and just go nuts. So if you look at his like Miami highlights and his Bears highlights, oh my gosh,
his Miami ones are crazy too. Yeah. People forget about that. His punt, I think he had crazier punt returns.
In
Miami because he had plays where he ran back like 30 yards. Just and then gone. See ya.
Different type
crazy
of
talent.
Different type of
crazy talent.
Awesome. Well, hey James, before we let you go, where can we find you, man? I know you're on The Athletic. Do you have a podcast? Can you plug your stuff real quick for us?
Yeah, so we have a podcast called 1% Better. It's going to get changed to Upper Quartile. 1% Better was with Frank Reich, the former Colts coach. We got to change the name over, but you can still find it at 1% Better at all podcast platforms. Obviously, my writing at The Athletic. Follow me at Romeoville Kid on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I try to do like clips of like my day sometimes, which is doing really well. Some people like that kind of stuff. Maybe this year I'll finally like sit down and do a voiceover and kind of explain what I'm doing. But just stay tuned. If you ever want to see like what it's like to be a reporter, how we go into the games, what the food is like, during the games, halftime. Only time you can't film really is in the locker room because you might see something you can't put on TV. Because
I'm sure
are going around. But yeah,
you don't want to be Antonio Brown over there.
Yeah, don't want that to happen. But I do think it's a nice little behind the scenes on that front, just to kind of see what a day in life is like. How early you got to get there, where you go in at, going down to the field at the field level, seeing it from our point of view, those types of things. So if you want to see something like that, check out my page. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on. It was fun to kind of go down memory lane a little bit and put the hat back on. So I don't know if it ever really leaves you, but like I said, it's fun to be in a space where you're constantly talking about, what you really enjoy.
One last question and be quick. Do you consider like the fan hat's off, but when you're reporting for that team, I almost feel like you maybe took your personal fan hat off, but now you almost build a new fan hat. Like it's kind of hard to not.
I actually don't. Yeah, it was pretty easy for me when I've been 5 years into it now as a professional writer, and I think and this is going into my third year as on like a pro beat. It's pretty easy, man. I like I said, I love storytelling more than I love anything else. So, and to me, the best stories are always the ones where like sports is kind of the backdrop, and you got to get into a guy's life. You kind of figure out where they come from, who they are, that sort of thing. So it wasn't hard for me. It's not hard now. Even like, for example, I'm not checking every week what the Bears did. It's just not what I've been accustomed to. But it is, again, if it's like them or somebody else, I probably turn them on because I'm more interested in like what's happening in my hometown or my home state. But yeah, it's not like I'm rooting for anybody. You root for like your story. So you hope for, quick games, a lot of running, get out of the stadium on time, those sorts of things. And you root for the person, which makes it easy. Because I tell you, every single time I sit down for like a Super Bowl or a big college football playoff game, they tell you about some kid's backstory. I'm like, okay, I'll root for them. And they tell you somebody else on the other side who has some crazy story. I'm like, dang, I'd root for him too. So in that point, I guess I root for everybody to be successful. But from teams, it's like, nah, it's pretty easy to turn it off, man. And I guess the good part is like my outlet is probably like, the NBA or other sports where you can be a little more, I guess, less professional. Because I do have to watch what you say, because it's like, if you ever end up covering this team or this player, you don't want to like, be able to like
burn bridge before you get there.
Exactly. Google your name or search your name on Twitter and that a certain player's name, and like you saying this guy's trash. You can't say that anymore. Yeah, man, it's been fun. And
leave that to us. Leave that to us, James. We'll fill that in for you.
I mean, it's crazy. Like if I ever switch teams, I know for a fact whatever the best players on that team, I will search my Twitter to make sure that y'all don't get those receipts from me at all.
Facts.
That's awesome. Well, James, man, we appreciate you hopping in here, talking, just ball with us. Again, we'll have all your links here in the description. We'll have to have you on again, maybe in the, when the Bears Colts Super Bowl later this year. So, but I appreciate it, man. You take care.
Thanks, James. Oh man, I can't go through
All
another
right.
Colts Bears Super Bowl. I'm sorry, I can't.
Hey, no, I was just joking. That's probably not going to happen, at least not for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But thank you to James again, hopping on, talking ball with us, and a lot of great insight just from the joint practices. We definitely appreciate it. If you guys like this content, again, we just want to drop it. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you want to, see more content as the season's here. We're about a couple weeks out from week 1. We're super, super excited. Of course, we have our partnership recently here with Sports Mockery that we're very, very just excited to be a part of. They're a great company, great platform. So go ahead and check out them at sportsmockery.com. Ficky, man, anything else before we head out of here?
No, that was great. I love when we talk, like the time just goes by and you don't realize we've been talking for an hour because it's just like great conversation, a lot of great tidbits. And I try not to compare like every black quarterback to Justin Fields, but if there's one that is pretty close, you know what I mean? It's Anthony Richardson. And so I kind of want to see how we already know how we handled Fields. I kind of want to see how the Colts handled.
They're already doing it better.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see, what the results may be. Obviously, they're two different people, so two different work ethics, things like that. There's a lot of variables that go into it, but at least from a high level, it's kind of something I'm going to have my eye on, especially since we don't have to worry about playing them or anything. I can kind of like have a side team to root for. So it should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and check the chat. If you guys have any questions for us that you'd like us to answer just before we go, we'll answer a couple more. And
here's the first one. Here's the first one from Philip. It was earlier in the show. He said, "Hey guys, great show. Would you guys play the starters next week and for how long?" And if you don't mind, I'll hop in on this one because I can't remember. A reporter was talking about what typically happens with the joint practices is because they get if the two practices are good, and Flus even talked about this. He said it's basically like 2 preseason games. So when they have the joint practices, a lot of times you don't see the starters in the second game or whenever that joint practice was. But in the third game, what they'll do is they'll extend the time that they normally, since they missed the second one, they'll have them play longer in the third game. So I'd say it's a guess because I'm not in the room, right? I would assume that Fields probably plays a couple drives, maybe goes into the second quarter, things like that, in the third final preseason game. But again, I don't need him playing more than a half. Like, let's get you ready for week 1. That game is way more important. Dave, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, week 3. You have to play Justin Fields next week, at least a few drives. You can't go into the Green Bay week 1, such an important game. You have to win this one. And I don't want to hit, as far as rust goes, if you're rusty, through 2 quarters against the Packers, it could be, you might not be able to, make that up. So for me, I don't need much, but get the offense out there, a drive or 2. If you want to play him a quarter, I mean, that's great too, but just at least have some reps. You can't go 2.5 weeks without having really anything else besides that joint practice. Because everyone sat last night. You had Justin Fields and, DJ Moore laughing it up. And then, but I mean, even Justin kind of looked bored, looked like he wanted to get in the game.
When he was tossing that football.
He's just tossing the football up and
I'd be bored
like that. So yeah, I would be concerned if they didn't play it all next week, but I have no doubt that they'll probably at least get a couple drives in. So what else we got?
Cool. And then we have another one here from Jay Capone, the Don. He said, "Why is everyone down on Javon? The man is getting constant pressure just off his raw talent. Like people, off his raw talent, like people just love to box score watch." Yes, people do box score watch. Let's be fair. He is a rookie. So I don't know. I think sometimes we want results fast, I think, as humans. So when these rookies come in, we're like, oh, why aren't you balling out yet? Because we see people like, we see the outliers of like a Jefferson, a Jamar Chase, like some of the like a Myles Garrett, they come in and just automatically dominate as a rookie. But in reality, most rookies do. It's a quick transition to go from college to the NFL. So, I just want to see growth. I think, he's still getting a little high on his pad level, right? But, we're seeing some good plays. So I say let's just watch through the year, see how he looks, because a great example that we can actually look at was Kyler Gordon. Kyler Gordon did not come out good last year. He did not. And his first couple of games, we're talking about like, oh my God, did polls miss on Kyle Gordon? Oh my God. And look at where he's at now. Now he's the talk of the town. Like, oh, Kyler is such a great find. Well, it took him a minute to get there. So if we take that same perspective with some of these rookies and go, hey, let's just give him time. Let's see what happens. I feel like that perspective will keep you like not freaking out over like, why isn't Javon Dexter giving me 8 sacks a season? You know what I mean? So that's my perspective on it anyways. Dave, how do you feel? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Let me unmute myself here. But as far as Dexter, it really is, you want instant, results. It's the preseason. It's going to take time there. He was always going to be a project for the most part. Last night, I mean, he played in a total, let me see here. He had 28 total snaps. That's not a lot. Much. You have to get in a rhythm here. I think he's going to be fine. At the end of the day, you got to give these guys some time, to get accustomed to just the NFL level. Is he going to be an instant impact player? Week 1, probably not. But to see him maybe week 9, week 10, you want to see results by then, especially if he's getting, more than 29 snaps in a game. So, I mean, for me, again, I'm not worried at all. You just got to take the good and obviously just kind of enjoy the process. Now, again, week 9's here and we're like, where is he? We haven't seen him. That's a different story. You want to see at least some, highlights, some, progress. And so
the potential
I'm not
leading through. Yeah.
Not worried.
Yeah. It's preseason. We can't get too high or too low because we don't know. I mean, a lot of these guys are learning new stuff that they have never learned before. Like the coaching level, I don't think people understand. Like, unless it's Saban, Alabama, like some of these top dogs, the coaching level differences from the NFL to college is remarkable. So these people are really coming in with a blank slate and being like, oh, I got to learn this all over again. We look at Fields, right? Fields had to relearn his drop back and then switching feet and things like that. So there's a lot that really goes into it. So I could see how, you got to give these people time to really soak it in and make change because it's not an easy process. So.
Right. Anyways, Ficky, anything else, man? Any other questions?
No, I think that is it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everyone that kind of tuned in. We had a lot of, obviously a lot of good, chats that we kind of shared throughout the show. We hope you guys enjoyed kind of just seeing a different perspective, from the Colts side as far as joint practices go. I thought he was very level-headed, gave some good insight on not just Justin Fields, but the entire team. I loved how he kind of looked at Stevenson. We kind of seen that last night as far as his physicality and his aggressiveness, with that late, penalty. But like I said, we're excited. I think I'm just ready for the football season to be here, ready for week 1, meaningful football where we get to kind of, watch over every snap. But again, if you like the content, if you like the video, just go ahead and make sure to leave a like. Ficky, I think we'll be back next week, early next week, maybe Tuesday. Yeah. Maybe do some film review, all 22, some Tyson Bagent. I think it's
Bagent. I'm going to have to double check.
Yeah, Tyson Bagent. Kind of look at him, see, some snaps from Roschon Johnson, who looked amazing, which is crazy. I was looking through some of these in-depth stats with Roschon Johnson because I was like, man, he's had a pretty phenomenal preseason, in my opinion. It looks like David Montgomery just a little bit faster. Kind of talked about that, but he had 75 yards after contact, 4th most in the preseason already. And then he had 6 forced missed tackles, which is 2nd most in the preseason, and it's unlimited snaps. I mean, obviously he's playing a little bit more than, Herbert, but at the same time, I think it was only 20-something snaps last night. Yeah, he's able to produce. So very excited with that and that development. So we have a lot to go over as far as just the all 22 factor and, see everything from a different angle. Something we enjoy doing. As far as the guests, we'll try and see if we can get Rob back on. If not, we'll have someone that is in the weeds as far as,
if not, we'll figure it out.
If not, we're all growing, together. So we'll be excited. But Ficky, anything else before we go, man?
Nah, man, I'm ready. Every episode, we're just closer and closer to week 1. So I'm excited,
man. Like I said, we're reacting to, practices and preseason games. It's fun, at least maybe for the first, couple weeks, but it's man, can we get to Green Bay? I want to know how we start the season. I want to react and kind of have that, that real passion come out, especially post-game pods and everything like that. But again, everyone that showed in, watched the pod today, we appreciate it. And we'll catch you next week, probably Tuesday, if not a little earlier. But we'll see you then.
Peace.